Israel expands its war in Lebanon despite what is officially still a ceasefire. Hezbollah is bringing a new dimension to the conflict with cheap but effective drone warfare. And we'll look at what this means for the wider conflict in the Middle East as the US and Iran continue to spar over the Strait of Hormuz and the lack of any progress towards peace. I'm Hazem Sika, and this is the Newsmakers. Israel and Hezbollah have continued trading fire in southern Lebanon, despite an April ceasefire meant to pave the way for negotiations. Hezbollah is claiming cross-border drone attacks on Israeli military bases for the first time since the truce. Israeli strikes have killed more than 380 people in Lebanon since the ceasefire, and there's been widespread demolition of homes in dozens of villages in the south. All this could make it politically impossible for Tehran to stay at the table as it demands Israel stop its attacks on Lebanon as part of any peace deal with the US.
Israel and Lebanon signed a ceasefire in Washington just weeks ago. But in southern Lebanon, the fighting has continued almost uninterrupted, with Israeli strikes, Hezbollah attacks, and growing doubts over whether the truce still exists beyond the negotiating table. Lebanese leaders are again urging Washington to pressure Israel to halt its attacks ahead of another round of talks this week. But despite ongoing diplomacy, the ceasefire is still being tested.
Between Friday and today, UNIFIL has continued to record extensive military activity across its area of operations. During this period, peacekeepers observed more than 1,296 trajectories of projectiles attributed to the Israeli Defense Forces, and 64 trajectories of projectiles attributed to Hezbollah.
The fighting is also evolving in new ways. Hezbollah has increasingly deployed fiber-optic first-person view drones, weapons already reshaping the war in Ukraine. Unlike conventional drones, they don't rely on radio frequencies that can be jammed. Instead, they trail thin fiber-optic cables behind them, giving operators clearer imagery and making the drones extremely difficult to detect electronically. In Ukraine, the technology has forced armies to adapt fast. Roads near the front lines are now covered in anti-drone netting. Armoured vehicles move beneath layers of mesh. Some villages are left tangled in fiber-optic cables after repeated strikes. Israeli media reports similar challenges are now emerging in southern Lebanon. A leaked Russian military proposal obtained by The Economist suggested Moscow could supply Iran with thousands of fiber-optic FPV drones and training programs during the US-Israeli war. According to The Economist, Israeli officials believe similar systems now appearing in southern Lebanon may have been transferred to Hezbollah through Iran's Revolutionary Guards. Yet for many civilians in southern Lebanon, the changing technology of the conflict has brought little change on the ground, with Israel continuing strikes, displacement and military operations, while still insisting the truce remains in place.
Israel is saying they are targeting Hezbollah. They're lying. Israel is lying. The land is not theirs.
The ceasefire may still hold on paper, but as diplomacy struggles to keep the truce alive, the conflict on the ground is entering a new phase.
Well, joining me now to talk more about this from Beirut, founder of Levant Institute for Strategic Affairs, Sami Nader. From Tel Aviv, political analyst and contributor to Haaretz newspaper, Akiva Eldar. And joining us from Oxford in the UK, specialist in drone warfare, Zachary Kallenborn. Good to have you all with us, gentlemen. Sami, let me start with you. And what do you make of what is happening in southern Lebanon right now? Not just in terms of the toll that this is taking on the country, but also the type of warfare that we are starting to see now.
I mean, this is unprecedented of what we have been witnessing before. I mean, we had several Israeli incursions in the Lebanese territory starting with 1978. 1982, 2006, 1996, but this time is totally different. One could see the Gazification of the war in Lebanon that is taking place, which means a systematic destruction, laying to the ground all kind of infrastructure and installing what has been already called a yellow line, means a line that is devoid of any possibility of life. And this raises a lot of concern, because this means beyond war depopulation. So will it be depopulation for future annexation like what happened in the Golan after the 1973 war? This raising a lot of concern, a lot of fears among the Lebanese population, and we are in face of a new, totally new phase of the war.
Akiva Eldar, if we talk about the drone tactics from Hezbollah for a moment, are these evolving drone tactics exposing Israel's vulnerabilities, not just on the battlefield, but in terms of its whole security doctrine?
I think that timing is the most important element in this discussion. Right now, the Israel is getting very close to early elections, since Netanyahu and the ultra-Orthodox are not able to come to terms about the new so-called legislation about recruiting the Orthodox youngsters. So what Netanyahu and his government are looking at, and this is also in regard to Gaza and Iran, how will it affect their constituency? Their constituency, especially in the north, on the northern border, is very nervous and very upset. They would do anything to satisfy them. The problem is that while they are looking at inside, they're looking at the Israeli domestic issues, there are also international issues. Their hands are tied by President Trump, and they are not able to do what they really would like to do. And this is to run after Hezbollah as far as they can, forget the Litani line, the Litani River, and to use the Israeli Air Force to strike Hezbollah and to make sure that they are not going back. But at the same time, also, Israel is negotiating with the Lebanese government regarding a kind of a political diplomatic settlement. So the lenses are domestic. The bottom line is what's best for Netanyahu in the elections that will happen not later than this year in October.
Zachary Kallenborn, explain to us how these FPV drones work. And we were just showing some pictures of them earlier. What makes them particularly effective in the Israel-Lebanon battlefield?
Yeah, so a first-person view drone is essentially a drone where you see directly from the perspective of the drone itself, and that allows much more precise targeting because you can see what it's seeing, and so zone in on say the particular seam between the rotating top of the tank and the main actual body, hit more precise weak points in order to do that. And we've also seen related developments where increasingly Hezbollah is using fiber-optic controlled drones, which is quite significant because it means that Israeli defenses related to jamming the controls between the signal between the drone and the controller itself is much more difficult, if not impossible, when you have the cable ensuring that the information is going through. So that creates significant new challenges.
Sami Nader, when we look at this, is Lebanon in danger of sliding into a new kind of conflict that is neither full-scale war nor a genuine ceasefire.
Yes, because what we're seeing on the ground, and now we're commenting this new equipment that is being used, is a kind of cat and mouse cycle. Every time Hezbollah is building new capabilities, and Israel is trying to adapt by installing new equipment in new kind of warfare. At first, for instance, before, during the 2023 war, the range of capabilities of Hezbollah, or what we call the range, was about 8 to 10 kilometer. And this is why Israel was talking about getting inside Lebanon in a 10 kilometer range to get immune from direct tank shelling from Hezbollah. Now with this new drones, fiber-optic drones, Hezbollah increased the range of capability to 15 kilometers. So this would say, and definitely Israel will be adapting either through not the Iron Dome, but the laser dome that is under development, as we are reading. So we are now normalizing this type of an open front if a definitive settlement is not reached. A definitive settlement for this should be the full support of the Lebanese army by the international community to exert the monopoly of violence all over the Lebanese territory, especially now. The main what changed is the decision that was taken by the Lebanese government in order to dismantle all military organization, including Hezbollah. This is unprecedented. However, up to now, the Lebanese government was not capable, or the Lebanese authority was not capable of implementing its own decision. So this is why, in order to get out of this cat and mouse cycle and this indefinite cycle of violence, a permanent solution should be enforced, and through the direct support for the Lebanese government, the Lebanese army in particular, in order to implement the decision taken by the Lebanese authorities themselves.
Akiva Eldar, does Israel worry that it could get sucked into a kind of war of attrition in Lebanon, that Iran, through Hezbollah, is trying to wear them down through this attrition rather than a major confrontation?
Well, we've been there for 18 years, my friend, and the Israelis are getting used to a kind of normalization, which is an eternal war. Netanyahu actually exercises what Minister Smotrich said regarding Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. He said that Hamas is an asset and the Palestinian Authority is a burden, because with the Lebanese government, we have to negotiate everything, including the points of friction along the border, and to come to terms about the Shabbat farms, etc. With Hezbollah, we don't negotiate. We have to, so to speak, disarm them. But how can you disarm someone who can produce the next day after you disarmed him? He can buy in a toy shop some drones, and he can, it's like a fly, like a mosquito. So a mosquito doesn't kill you, but what it doesn't allow people to sleep normally. And this has been going on since October 23. And Netanyahu is even criticizing the previous government for signing an agreement. This is going to be part of the campaign that everything started with the agreement. They say it's agreement between Lapid and Bennett's government and Hezbollah, which is not true, regarding the offshore oil field, the gas field, which unfortunately doesn't help much Lebanon because they didn't find any gas. But this is what Netanyahu wants. He wants to keep it on the back burner. He doesn't want it to explode. But for him, as long as he can talk about the need for total victory, and this is the same case as Hamas in Gaza. He says, we will disarm them, and as long as he can convince President Trump, because this is the bottom line, as long as he can convince President Trump that Israel should have a free ride, that Israel can do more in order to disarm Hezbollah or put an end to the double-headed power in Lebanon, so we will speak to the Lebanese government. But actually, what he's doing is exactly what he did in Gaza. He supported the part who is not willing to come to terms with Israel in regard to the borders. Netanyahu's constituency doesn't expect him to bring peace. They expect him, in the best case, to bring quiet, to bring security. But, it's not on the agenda, peace with Lebanon or peace with the Palestinian people.
Zachary Kallenborn, are we witnessing the beginning of a kind of permanent shift where these cheap autonomous FPV drones can neutralize many of the advantages of advanced militaries?
To some extent, certainly there's significant advantages that come with these cheap, affordable drones. It's an open question, though, how much actual advantage in terms of getting victories and seizing territory actually have. So, in the context of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, for example, early on in the conflict, a lot of experts believed that Russia was basically just going to roll over Ukraine. That, of course, did not happen, and in significant part, there's a lot of reasons for that, from the Ukrainian morale to various failures of the Russian state, but certainly drones played an important role. And so it certainly provided Ukraine huge amounts of capability. But that said, we've gone on a few years now, and it's not that Ukraine has, won, taken back territory. They've been able to inflict meaningful and significant costs on Russia. But that's a little bit different than a meaningful victory. So what exactly that looks like in the context of Israel-Lebanon is, far from clear how exactly that plays out. Hezbollah certainly doesn't have some of the advantages that Russia has of having, massive military and state apparatuses that can help produce, contain, and adapt these types of capabilities over time. But certainly there's a huge advantage that Hezbollah now has in being able to essentially carry out aerial attacks in a continuous way that can create meaningful costs against Israel, where they can't necessarily defend all the different areas that they need to. And even the fact of doing so can create costs. As the other fellow mentioned earlier, is there's a psychological element. We have to constantly be aware and preparing for these attacks, and that has a meaningful effect on the psyche, even if it isn't necessarily a guarantor by any means of a major military victory.
I want to broaden this out a little bit in the time that we've got left and talk about the implications this has for the wider Middle East conflict. So if I turn back to you then, Sami, could this derail the diplomatic efforts between the US and Iran, even if both sides want negotiations to continue?
I mean, from the Iranian side, they are insisting on tying every settlement over every offer they are presenting to what's happening in Lebanon, and asking as a preliminary condition the stopping of the Israeli military operation in Lebanon. And recently we have seen that in the last offer they made a withdrawal from Israel from the Lebanese territory. However, on the other side, I think that the American administration in particular has succeeded in decoupling the Lebanese track from the Iranian one. I mean, building on the initiative taken by the Lebanese president to start direct talks with Israel. And this, in fact, is unprecedented. And this what made Hezbollah very angry, and this is why they refused this initiative taken by the president, and the president was subject to a very dirty campaign that has been waged by Hezbollah against him. But despite Hezbollah refusal, these talks are taking place. These will not be easy talks. There are pending and long-standing issues between Lebanon and Israel, starting with the delimitation of the land border. But to go back to your question, definitely any advance on the U.S.-Iranian track will impact positively the Lebanese-Israeli tracks. In that sense, that will calm Hezbollah and limit its ability to block or try to impeach these negotiations. But I should stress the importance of the initiative taken by the Lebanese authority in order to distance itself from the larger conflict in the Middle East, the one that is opposing Iran to US and Israel.
Akiva Eldar, what's your take on this? Could what's happening in Lebanon undermine the broader US-Iran diplomacy?
Absolutely. I believe that if this is the case, while we're talking, there is a ceasefire, an official ceasefire that was imposed by the United States. But we have also to remember that the UNIFIL mandate is very close to an end. And what will happen next? We need a third party, some responsible adult to take over. Who will take over? UNIFIL actually has failed. As we see, the facts on the ground.
This is the UN-led peacekeeping force that you're talking about, just to clarify.
Yeah. So what will happen, I think, is that if President Trump and the Iranian will reach some settlement, they will include Lebanon, and the Lebanese-Israeli conflict has to be part of this. And once President Trump wants a handshake with the Iranian and with the Lebanese to receive, his dream is still the Nobel Peace Prize. Netanyahu or the Israeli next government, as I said at the beginning, there will be in Israel a new government. This is no question about it. So it will be a new ball game.
Zachary Kallenborn, when you look at what's happening in southern Lebanon today, presumably the U.S. military and Iran's military are going to be studying all of this very closely.
Yeah, absolutely. Many countries all around the world, I think, have a significant interest in, drone warfare and what exactly that means for the future of conflict. Certainly, we've seen, not only in Lebanon, but around the world, we've seen the rapid proliferation of these types of capabilities and having very meaningful effects on conflict. Not only in the case of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, but we saw that in Armenia, Azerbaijan, for example, where the Azeris were able to inflict significant costs and casualties on the Armenians using a wide range of affordable drones. We've also seen it in Libya. We've seen it in a number of countries in Africa. Even Mexican drug cartels are increasingly killing one another using some of these exact same simple drones. So, we clearly see this rapid change in technology and rapid proliferation all around the world. And I think countries are very much struggling to understand what to do about it, given these very affordable capabilities that they have. Although, there are a broad range of solutions, things like lasers, nets, kinetic solutions, especially with these fiber optic capable drones, it means that we have to shift towards different types of capabilities and ones that may be more costly and more difficult to engage with. So certainly, organizations need to be incorporating these lessons learned across the board, even to the very lowest levels. The United States, for example, increasingly in some of our boot camps and early infantry training have incorporated drones, rightly so, in order to defend against them.
All right, we've got to leave it there. Thanks very much for your time, gentlemen. Sami Nader in Beirut, Akiva Eldar in Tel Aviv, and Zachary Kallenborn in Oxford. Thanks very much for being with us, and thank you for watching. As always, you can follow us on social media and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Hazem Sika. We'll see you next time.